We will begin with opening statements. You will each have 2 minutes for that. So, Mr. Homann, you can go ahead and go first.
Alrighty. I'd first like to thank everyone for coming out here today. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Andrew Homann. I'm a business economics major here. I'm someone that can relate to the student body, but I acknowledge that there's a broken system right now, and something needs to be fixed. Students don't know what's going on in student government. They don't know where they can go to join organizations, and a lot of our students aren't involved in anything. As a senator, I crafted bills to improve campus life for everybody. One of those included a resource that students can go to, and they can access student government for any problems that they see. Another one that I crafted, along with my the running partner, Anthony Galo, was one to increase the tuition for the LBJ Student Center. The LBJ Student Center will be a place that organizations can meet, and it will just have a home feel. It will be the living room of our campus. I have good relationships with a lot of people on campus. I'm involved in the fraternity, I'm in the business school, and I just feel like I'm the right person for the job to inspire students and build better podcasts.
Thank you. Mr. Galo?
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's a great audience here tonight. I think seeing you all here to get our opinions really matters. I go around and I ask my friends, what has student government done for you? And they have no answer. And I think that needs to change. We need to start putting the issues, the concerns, and the initiatives of Bobcats first. And we need to not only pass legislation, but act on it. And that's what I'm proposing. That's why I decided to run for student body president. And like Andrew said, we did work on a piece of legislation together, so we don't hate each other or anything. We're here for the same reason, but we both obviously have different leadership skills. And I want to go ahead and make sure that everyone is being heard. I want to make sure that we are the spokesperson of students and that we're not going to university administration and getting their advice and not acting on specifics.
All right, thank you very much. First question is for Mr. Gallo. In your Q&A with the University Star, which will be published next week, you mentioned that if elected, we have initiatives you would like to enact regarding the Safe Ride Home program and parking regulations. What do these initiatives entail and how would you implement them?
Yeah, Safe Ride Home program. It's long overdue. We have to face the reality, and we need to let university administration know that partying and drinking is just part of the college experience. I hate to see DWIs being handed out. I hate to especially see Bobcats getting in car crashes after having a night out of drinking. I've been very passionate about this Safe Drive Home program since my sophomore year, and I think that we can make it happen. We need the student support behind it, and we can make it happen. I plan on as far as specifics go, I think it'll be great to have it as an external branch of student government and get volunteers and set restrictions, of course, to ensure that our volunteers aren't drinking and making sure that this program is effective and it's saving lives.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Homann, do you have anything you want to ask them?
Yeah, I think it is a good idea. Personally, sounds a lot like Uber to me. I feel like that's what that app is there to accomplish. With the Safe Ride Home program, I don't think anybody wants anybody going home drunk. I think that's an obvious. But the fact of the matter is Texas State doesn't have the resources to pay for a program like that, and I don't think you're going to get very many students that are going to volunteer for that. I don't think that's where our efforts should be going. I think our efforts should be designated towards some things that are actually going to impact some lives on the campus, and let Uber and taxi rides take care of their job.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo, do you have anything?
Yeah, not a lot of people know about Uber or Lyft. So having something that helps Bobcats, bringing Bobcats home safe is something that I'm passionate about. No one likes to, you mentioned that that people don't want to drink and drive, but the reality is people do it all the time, especially us, that we're young and we're making mistakes. And sometimes one mistake can cost us big. So having this program, really advertising this program, is going to, I think, avoid big catastrophe in the future. So we're going to push for it, and I'm going to continue to push for it.
Thank you. Do you have anything to
Yeah, Mr. Gallo mentioned that people don't know about Uber and Lyft, but I would be willing to bet a lot of people know more about Uber and Lyft than the programs that student government has designed over the past few years. Fact of the matter is, if Uber can't advertise enough to where people don't know about Uber, I don't think we're going to be effectively capable of advertising our Lyft program. So, great idea, but I just think for the time being, it's not something we need to focus our efforts on.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo? Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to the next issue.
This next question is for Mr. Homann. In your Q&A with the University Star, you said the main order of business you would like to complete as student body president is to develop more traditions for homecoming days. You also said you would think implementing a rush week for organizations to boost student involvement. Why are these issues important to you, and outside of these goals, what do you hope for the student body as president? What do you hope to accomplish for the student body as president?
Yeah, we come to Texas State and we go to college to have 4 years that are memorable for us. They're the 4 years that are the best of our lives. And one of the ways to do that is to get involved, to get to know people and make experiences. So something that I've suggested is an organizational tailgate. Student government already does a function like it for freshmen. At the beginning of the year, we host a freshman tailgate and many more throughout the year in the football season. Essentially, what this would be doing is taking that same concept and combining it with all organizations around the campus. So any organization that wants to spread their word, get people, rush people, they come to us, they can sign up. They'll be able to get a spot there in the tent. And then after that, they can meet. If you come as a freshman, you can meet all the organizations and get to know them. And then from there, you'll be able to tailgate with them and join their organizations.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
I think what Senator Homann is proposing is already existing. It's called the Involvement Fair. And he's running for the wrong office if he's going to focus on student involvement. We need to focus on the main issues, on the issues that concerns the initiatives of Bobcats. And when we do that, when we solve real problems, we boost student morale. And it makes people want to get involved. That's how we solve that issue. Not through hosting more traditions, so we can get people to come to the traditions that are already established.
Thank you. Mr. Homann?
This would not be a tradition. This would be something that would allow students to get to know more of their peers and therefore be actively involved in the community. It is without no doubt that if you're involved in an organization, you're going to be more involved with the school. Arguably, Greeks are the most involved with the school because they have so much going on. They're intertangled with the school, and this would just be another way for everyone to come together.
Mr. Gallo?
Like I said, there's a student involvement fair. It happens every semester at the beginning of the semester. And I think the SOC is doing a great job at it. So why establish something that's already there and that's frankly working?
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
And to add back onto that real quick, this would not be establishing anything new. This would just be making progress on what we already have. We already have this in play. It would just be making it better.
Thank you. Okay. So this question is for both of you. Mr. Gallo, you can go ahead and answer first. So student government passed 13 pieces of legislation during the 2014-2015 academic year. 3 of these legislation pieces regarded transportation, a sporting event theme, and a resolution to recognize past and current members of the United States Armed Forces and its allies' armed forces during commencement. However, 9 of these 13 pieces of legislation had to do with student government's own affairs, including a resolution to temporarily change the meeting time of the Student Senate and a budget appropriations bill to spend $733.48 on polo shirts for student government. If you had to evaluate student government's performance last year, how would you describe it? Did the Senate serve as the student's voice to its fullest capacity?
There's no doubt in my mind that we have a lot of work to do. Student government has a lot of work to do. This year, I was able to work with our vice president as Senate Pro Tem Porn. We were able to restructure the Senate and make sure that we were organized, make sure that senators were attending the meetings. Our retention rate was higher than ever. As far as the pieces of legislation goes, there's work to do, and my leadership skills are going to be different than past administrations. we're not accurately representing the students, and that needs to change. It's going to change when I'm in office. We need to start putting their issues, their concerns, and their initiatives first before anything else. So, legislation is passed. It's heard by university administration, but it's not acted on. And that's what we're going to change. We're going to make sure that it's acted on, that we're following through.
Mr. Homann?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. So student government passed 13 pieces of legislation during the 2014-2015 academic year. 3 of these pieces of legislation regarded transportation, a sporting event theme, and a resolution to recognize past and current members of the U.S. Armed Forces and its allies' armed forces during commencement. However, 9 of the 13 pieces of legislation passed last year had to do with student government's own affairs, including a resolution to temporarily change the meeting time of the Student Senate, and a budget appropriations bill to spend $733.48 on polo t-shirts for student government. So if you had to evaluate student government's performance last year, how would you describe it, and did the Senate serve as the student's voice to its fullest capacity?
If I describe, I don't believe the Senate served as the student's voice. This last December, as some of the staff are aware, the University Star read a report that said student government didn't really do anything this year, as I mentioned in my interview. Like you said, 13 pieces of legislation got passed. I'd be willing to bet the majority of the people in here couldn't name one of them. The fact of the matter is student government has to get serious. We need to focus on one issue that the students will get behind and that we can constantly update them on. You know, if that calls for just one piece of legislation to be passed in the semester, but it's actually meaningful, that goes so much further than 13 things that don't do anything. So what I think we need to do is find an issue that everyone can get behind and see it through. You know, pass it through the Senate, have distinguished debates on it in the Senate, and then once it's there, when I'm in office, I'll do my job to make sure it gets enforced.
Okay. Mr. Galo, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I just want to say that we don't need to find an issue. The issues are already there. When I go out to the quad and I start speaking to students, they bring their issues. The issues are there. We're just not going out and we're not engaging with the student body. And that's where my campaign, where my administration will change that ultimately. We're going to make sure that we're out there, that we're engaging with every single organization and its members and hearing the issues, because the issues are there. We need to start acting on them. That's where we go wrong.
Thank you.
Mr. Gallo is absolutely correct. The issues are there. And we are acting on them in student government. We're writing pieces of legislation about it. We're writing resolutions, but there's no action from it. It just falls off the table. So I think as student government, we're trying to tackle way too much. We need to definitely narrow it down, get back to the base, and figure out a couple issues, a couple key issues, and just have the whole Senate get behind it. Have half of the Senate sponsoring it, researching it, going out to students, getting their opinion, and then really putting together something meaningful, not necessarily just a 3-piece thing of paper to say, hey, I wrote a resolution.
Thank you. Next question is for both of you. As stated earlier, students will have a chance to vote on the referendum concerning the LBJ Student Center fee. The bill related to the increase of fee to $100, reducing it by $36, $18 the first year, another $18 the second year. What is your stance on this proposal, and why or why not do you support it?
Yeah, Andrew and I worked on this piece of legislation together, and to pass a referendum to students because and I personally think that we need it. There's a lot of organizations out there that aren't able to meet and are being denied. Just this week, I spoke to a head of an organization who kept getting denied, and he had to keep taking his organization to coffee shops and off campus. So that's an issue we need to fix to ensure that student involvement can stay strong. I am for LBJ expansion, absolutely, and I think that students should definitely get a say of how they want it built and what they need and what resources we should put in there. So I'm willing to work with Jack, our LBJ director, and the students to ensure that happens.
Yeah, Mr. Gallo is absolutely right. we co-authored that piece of legislation together, so we obviously both support it. We both have the same interpretation of it. We need a LBJ Student Center expansion because it's vastly undersized for the 40,000 students we have here. Increasing that LBJ Student Center will also increase our student involvement. It brings me back to this. Hypothetically, let's say 5,000 people vote in this referendum, and that is an overshot. That's 12.5% of our student population. Voting on a referendum that's going to increase their tuition. Students don't know. Students aren't involved. They don't know this information, and I think that's absolutely poor. That their tuition could be getting raised when only 12% of the population is representing that's said in the vote.
Thank you. Okay, so this question is for you both as well. Mr. Homann, you can go ahead and answer it first. So the University of Texas at Austin student government passed a resolution in opposition of campus carry. The resolution stated, quote, "The University of Texas at Austin student government opposes any actions pursued by the legislature to legally allow non-law enforcement officials the ability to possess concealed handguns on our campus." Quote. The resolution was sent to university and state officials, including Governor Greg Abbott. So why has Texas State student government, as the student body's voice, not publicly taken a stance on campus carry? In the past, student government chose not to take a stance on issues such as same-sex marriage as well. So do you think it's important for student government to take stances on current issues?
I do believe it is important for us to take stances on current issues. It's fine and dandy that UT wrote a referendum or a resolution to Governor Abbott, but the fact of the matter is the law's already passed. There's no going back. If we really wanted to stop this, we would have been protesting when the legislation was in Senate. So we can't do anything about it. It's coming. So now what we have to do is we have to educate our students and prepare them for it, prepare them for any disasters, prepare them for anything that might happen, as well as keep close tracks on places on campus that we want the guns. There's an NCAA rule that no guns will be coming to athletic events, or firearms at athletic events, and I think that's something we should uphold and support. Obviously, no guns near the preschool center or the daycare, because I just don't think there's any advantage to that. So while I do think we should take stance on controversial issues, there's nothing we can do on this one except for educate the students.
Thank you. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Oh, okay. Our stance as far as campus carry goes and taking a stance on it is definitely safety. Like Holly mentioned earlier, we want to make sure everybody feels safe. And the fact of the matter is that there's two groups of people, some who are going to be highly for it and some who are going to be against it. And we want to just make sure everybody feels safe and comfortable, which is why we plan on working with university administration to ensure that if you choose to bring your gun onto campus, that you're registered with the university. I think it's important that we know who has a license and who doesn't to make sure everybody's responsibly doing it. Last thing we want is someone to think that they can bring a gun on campus not being licensed just because there's a Texas law. So yes, we can't do anything about it now, but we're going to take measures to ensure that everybody feels safe and comfortable on campus.
Mr. Homann, do you have anything? Okay, thank you. Okay, so this question is for both of you again. Mr. Gallo, you can answer first. So from 2013 to 2015, only 2 to 4% of students voted in the student government elections. Why do you think the turnout has been low historically? What do you think that says about student government's connection with the student body, and how do you plan to increase voter turnout as president?
I think the reason we're not getting a high voter turnout is because people don't know about student government. They don't know about what we do and what tools and how impactful we can be in their lives. The truth of the matter is that student government does have a lot of impact. You know, just now we have that power to pass a referendum and put it up to students to make it university policy. We should take more actions like that on other issues to ensure that students see actual results. I plan to meet with heads over the first day in office, get all 354 organizations that are registered on campus, talk to all the heads of organizations, because those are the leaders on campus who can push their members to get involved. And I'm all for having a committee with presidents and vice presidents and for them to bring their issues and their concerns from their organizations and their members. And that's how I plan on making sure student government gets out there.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question as well?
Yes. So from 2013 to 2015, only 2 to 4% of students voted in the student government elections. Why do you think the turnout has been low historically? And what do you think that says about student government's connection with the student body? And how do you plan to increase voter turnout as president?
Yeah, this is something I touched on earlier. Our student voter turnout is not good, comparative to other schools. And like Mr. Gallo mentioned, you can get the word out, we can market the fact that we're having elections, but the fact of the matter is people aren't going to start caring until we start doing anything that truly impacts their lives. So first, to tackle that issue, we have to tackle the internal issue of doing something meaningful, because, constantly if they come out and vote and then they don't see any progress or production happening from us, then they're not going to come out and vote the next year. So I think once we start turning out some meaningful pieces of legislation, that voter turnout will increase.
Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to add? All right, so now we will go to audience questions. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question.
We got to. Okay, wait, let's start over here. You have hand up.
What do y'all plan to do to support diversity, not just on a person-to-person level, but on an institutional level within student government?
Diversity is a great thing here at Texas State, and we have a lot. We have a lot of multicultural organizations out there, and I have some friends in multicultural organizations, and when I talk to them about student government, they have no idea what it's about. So like I said earlier, I'm going to make sure that we're reaching out to every type of organization. That includes multicultural organizations, that includes religious organizations, self-interest organizations, whatever it might be, and ensure that we're able to communicate with the diverse audience.
Yeah, going off what Anthony said, diversity is a huge thing that we take serious here at Texas State. It's something we're proud of. We're one of the most diverse campuses in Texas. I think that's something that needs to be done, is there needs to be more interconnected interaction within multicultural organizations and other organizations, Hispanic Business Association, bringing everyone together, maybe finding a common thing of interest, and that way everyone can get to know each other more and interact, and therefore we become more of a family here at Texas State.
Thank you. We have another question.
Yeah, I was going to say about the voter turnout. Do you think representation in student government of minorities will help with that?
With voter turnout, absolutely. Student government, we really need to get more diversity within student government as well. Different organizations, and I think this goes back to my proposal here. To ensure that everyone knows about student government, we need to reach out to these organizations. We need to start talking to the presidents and the vice presidents of all types of organizations so they can tell their members about student government, to ensure that we're listening to their issues, their concerns, and their initiatives, and making sure that we're acting on what they need acted on. So we need to get the word out there about student government, and I think that's going to really, really diversify student government in itself and get more representation. There's people out there who are underrepresented, and that needs to change, and we're going to change that.
Yeah, I think diversity within student government would definitely help for a increased voter turnout. We do have a decent group of diverse people in student government, a bunch of great minds. As this campaign has gone on, me and Samantha have gone on, and we've made contact with members and presidents of the multicultural Greek organizations in every organization. We want everyone to be involved. Sam has reached out to Hispanic Business Association. We're trying to get everybody together to unite as Texas State rather than being divided.
Thank you. Are there any other audience questions? Richard?
My question's for both of you guys, but it's mostly for Mr. Galo. You mentioned earlier that you have leadership skills that set you apart from your position. What would be those skills?
Well, I've been in the Senate. I've been in student government for about since my freshman year, 3 years now. In that time, I've been able to see what's great about student government and what needs improvement. I've worked very closely with the executive branch this past year, so there's obviously internal issues that we need to fix within student government, because if we can't fix these issues, we're not going to be able to fix our external issues. So having that experience, my opponent has been in student government for about a year now, and having that experience and really know what's going on the inside and having a plan to fix what's on the inside first is going to help us reach out to more students.
I've been in student government for close to a year and a half, and while Mr. Gallo may have more experience than me in the Senate, I have more experience just developing relationships with Bobcats, which is what this is about. Getting out and getting to know people. I'm not just a one-horse pony. I'm not just in student government. I'm involved in different things. I'm involved in a fraternity. I'm involved in the business school, multiple groups around the business school. The fact of the matter is I'll be able to outreach and relate to more students and be able to get their opinions and information to make a difference in the Senate or in student government.
Mr. Gallo, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think another thing that separates me is the relationship you build with senators. It's very important that they see that you're going to hold them accountable for their actions. I've been able to communicate with many great senators who have passed great pieces of legislation this year, and I feel like I'm going to be able to better form that relationship with senators to ensure that I'm talking to them and making sure they're doing their job so we can ensure that we're representing students the right way.
Do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay.
I have a follow-up question.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, what are y'all thoughts on the lack of a Black Studies department at Texas State and the low numbers of minority faculty?
Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, I think I'm minority myself in this nation. I think that it's important that we recruit people from all walks of life. What makes this university so great? When I came into Texas State, I met different people from different walks of life. You get to learn so many new things, understand things from a different perspective, and the fact of the matter is everybody has a different experience. So it's definitely important that we bring in the minority experience and that we're able to start at a university level getting to know each other only as people. Because, then we grow up and it turns into hatred for whatever reason. We're not the blacks or the Hispanics or the whites. We are one people. And that's what we should be seeing each other as. I don't see my friends as the white guy or the black guy or the Hispanic guy. I see them as a friend, as a person. And I think that's very important to highlight on.
The Black Studies department, I'm sorry.
The what, I'm sorry?
The Black Studies department that I asked about?
The Black Studies Department?
Yes.
That
we don't have.
We don't have a Black Studies Department, okay.
Question, please.
I was asking you what you were going to do and towards the move for a Black Studies department at Texas State.
Gotcha. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. I wasn't aware, honestly, to be honest with you, I wasn't aware that there wasn't a Black Studies Department. That's important. We have civil rights movement, and LBJ was one of a pusher of civil rights. So it's important that we definitely work on ensuring that we have departments that are going to teach about different walks of life. I'm sorry to get that the first time.
Yeah, I think that's something that's very important. I think that would benefit everyone. It could intertwine and help the relations with everyone throughout Texas State. Some of the most influential professors in my life were people from different walks of life, different race than I was, and they taught me something, different. They challenged me to look at something different. So I think it's very important that we get, more diverse teachers and professors here, because going to college is about finding yourself, experience, and I think through that we can become better Bobcats.
Any other questions? I have one question. Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. For Mr. Homann, Samantha said something about podcasts.
Yeah.
And so, I don't look at my email all the time. So, for people who wouldn't look at their email, what would y'all do to make them look at podcasts?
Yeah, it would be something that would be broadcasted throughout the Texas State homepage and everywhere that you go, our Texas State Twitter. The essential priority for the podcast is because, like you said, no one really reads the emails. I feel like if we had a 2-minute video podcast that briefly described everything that had been going on in the Senate, things we hope to accomplish, and key things going around the university. It would be easy to just listen to a short 2-minute podcast and get to know what was going on if that one came out, every month.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
This is for Mr. Gallo. You say that the issues we need to act on already exist. You also said that people would come up to you in the quad and voice their problems or concerns. What do those people tell you, and how do you plan on focusing your resources and efforts in many different areas, yet still create a piece of legislation that will actually work, unlike pieces in the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. I met with a president of an organization, multicultural organization, and she mentioned to me that there are not a lot of resources for their organization, which is almost disgusting. And what we need to do is make sure that we're talking to these heads of organizations. They're in their positions for a reason, because they want to be involved, they want to be leaders. And I think if we're talking to them and communicating with them, we're getting an idea of what their members are going through and what their organization is going through, and we're able to better assist them in the tools that student government has. And whether that means passing referendums, changing policy, meeting with the administrator, whatever it means, we're going to start putting these issues first, these concerns first, and the initiatives of students.
Any other questions?
Sorry, one more question. This is for Mr. Gallo. So when people get a firearm, they already license it with the state, and as well as their own their license to carry, and then the gun itself is already registered with the state. So my question is, what your proposal for registering everybody on campus who carries a gun, what keeps that from being redundant with what's already in place with state law?
I think, like Holly said earlier today, and she really focuses on our safety platform, it's important to understand or to take every safety precaution that we can now. It's not an approval process or anything like that. It's a tool exclusively reserved to university administration and UPD in case there is a suspicious individual out there with a gun that someone notices. It gives them the authority to go out and ask, hey, can I see your license? Just like if you're out drinking a beer or something, you have to be over 21 to drink in a bar or something, and you're asked for your ID every time you go into a bar. So it's a precautionary measure. We want to make sure that everyone is doing it responsibly. It's not fair for someone to go out and get their license and have the right to bring it to campus, and then for someone to buy a gun from an unknown unknown source and bring it to campus just because state law says you can do so. So it's unfair to those responsibly CHL holders, and I also think it's a safety precaution that we need to go ahead and take.
Yeah, just to comment on what he said, I think it's a noble idea having a list of everyone who has concealed handgun license here on Texas State. But I have the same issues that you have. I don't think it accomplishes much. I think it'd just be a bunch of time really doing nothing. If something is to happen, what good is going back and looking at a list of people who have concealed handguns really going to do for us? They already register within the state. They're already approved by the state. And the likelihood that one of the concealed handgun members is going to cause the crime is a lot less than someone who did not register within the state or the school and brings a gun on campus. So while I think it's a good idea, I don't see the necessity of it.
Right, that's why we're looking for the ones that did not register. We're not looking for the ones who followed the law and did register. We're trying to differentiate between the ones who did register responsibly and are responsible owners who follow the law, and those who might have not followed the law. And I think that kind of gives a better sense of safety for all students here.
Okay. Any other questions?
And it's the last question. Sorry.
This is regarding Mr. Gallo's safety platform. Your running mate mentioned increasing the staff of UPD officers, and you also mentioned your Safe Platform program. What monetary resource do we have to fund these programs? How do you plan on funding these?
If you look at the student service fee committee budget, you see that there's a lot of spending. a lot of allocation of funds. I do not intend to raise any more fees. I think they're high enough. But when you're giving the alcohol department $150,000, and you're not sure where that money is going, then I think we have some questions to ask. A&M is able to fund their Safe Drive Home program with only $15,000. So if the university administration tells me we can't allocate funds, then I'm going to go back to that student service fee and ask them to give me some results. And where is this $150,000 going to? It's for an alcohol program, so why not serve students a lot better and use these funds to go ahead and have a Safe Ride Home program?
Really quick, I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Did you say alcohol department?
It's the department that alcoholic. When you go to orientation, I'm sorry, I can't think of the term right now, but when you go to orientation, you know how you go through all those alcohol seminars and whatnot. That's the fund that supports basically that funds all that.
You said alcohol department.
I'm sorry, not alcohol. There is not an alcohol department.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on to that. Student government has its own budget, and we deal with that budget. What the university decides to do with their resources, we really don't have too much control over. Here in the Senate, we could pass a bill that would, give them a recommendation, but then that goes back to focusing time on things that may not necessarily matter. If the university has already allocated money for that, I'm sure it's towards a good reason, and I just don't see allocating resources to more UPD being a viable option.
We do have the tools, and the Student Service Committee is actually a committee that is filled with student government members. I believe, the chair of that committee is Dr. Ariano, the Dean of Students, and there's about 5 other student government members in there. So when Senator Homann claims that there isn't anything we can do about it, of course there's something we can do about it. And of course he doesn't know about it because he probably didn't read code or something.
Are you going to allocate funds for another salary of another UPD? I mean, it's just not something you can do. I mean, we can sit up here and we can tell fairy tales about wanting to add positions, but we should stick to the issues of things that can actually get done.
It's an issue, and we're going to make it happen. We can make it happen if students really want it. If students get behind it, we can make it happen. The reason this university exists is because of us. So yes, it can happen if we want it.
Alright, thank you. We actually will take one more Twitter question, so we need a really good question. Audience question, my bad. This is a question for both candidates. What do you plan to do about the hazing that's going on campus?
In what specific form?
The hazing that's going on in Greek life, for example. Is there going to be ways to make that safer, that no one gets hurt? What do you guys plan to do about that?
As a member of Greek, I can affirm that there is no hazing that goes on that does any specific damage to the students. These members specifically join this organization because they see values that they want to be in men, and they become men. And same thing with other organizations. Hazing is not tolerable. It's not something that is accepted around the campus, and if it is continually a problem and it's brought to our attention, we will discipline them and go along with the actions that we see fits the situation.
Personally, I'm not a Greek member myself. I haven't heard any specifics on hazing. Of course, if it becomes a problem, then we need to take the steps to ensure that none of our students are being hurt in any capacity. Personally, I just haven't heard any specifics on hazing.
Alright. One last question. Does anybody else have one?
I'll take one.
Okay, go
That's
ahead.
alright. Both of you guys have talked a lot about, you mentioned earlier, Mr. Homann, about fairy tales and all that kind of stuff. What specific, concrete actions are you guys each going to take that are going to make changes on campus? Not, things that you hope to do, things that would be great if you could set up or whatever. What concrete actions are you going to take if you were elected?
My 3 main initiatives. Safe Ride Home program. We're going to continue working with parking services because it's ridiculous that parking services wants to put the burden on students to fund that department. We didn't come to Texas State to fund parking services. So we're going to continue finding small breaks. Just on Monday, a senator passed legislation that recommended that we reduce parking violations for students. And guess what I was doing this afternoon? Talking to Stephen Prentice about that legislation and making sure that it follows through. And we got into a debate about it, but that's what you have to do as a leader to get real results. And finally, LBJ expansion. We want to make sure that the student input is strong, that the LBJ Student Center is something that's going to fit what you want and the resources that you need.
Yeah, similar to what Mr. Gallo said, my biggest priority, and I'm going to focus a lot of attention to it, is the LBJ Student Center. I want something that current students design and something that fits their needs. We're the ones paying for it with the tuition increase. I feel like we should have a large voice on what goes into it. One specific area of the LBJ Student Center I'd like to focus on is George's. It's a thing everyone knows about, but not very many people use. I feel like it could be the living room for our university, places where people go watch sports games. We could televise Texas State sports games when they come on the road. It's something that we could, they have a kitchen there. We could establish a wing program for Swipe and just make it more of like a sports bar, Buffalo Wild Wings, so students can come into it and feel at home.
Thank you. So now that wraps up our audience question portion. So we're going to go ahead and move into closing statements. You each have 2 minutes. Mr. Homann, you can go ahead and go first.
I believe to completely change the culture of student government, you have to be obsessed with what you're doing. And that's what I can promise you when I get into office. Every day I'm going to wake up and look for an area that needs to be improved, that needs something done to it, an area where students are actually going to be impacted from. I can outreach a lot of students. I know a lot of people around the campus. I'm associated with many of the sports players. As I mentioned, Greek business organizations. I feel like I'll be able to go out to those students and feel the real issues that are concerning them, and then take those issues, the most important ones, and drive them through student government and make a real change.
Thank you. Mr. Galo?
We are indeed the rising star of Texas. Student population is up the roof, and we continue to expand and grow and continue to build, and that's great. But if we want to be the best university in the state of Texas, it starts with leadership. We can't have our main focus be student involvement or student attendance at the games. We need to make sure that we're putting students first, because when you start doing that, when you start listening to these issues and you start not only taking them to administration and have them hearing, but actually acting on it and following through, you start getting results and students start to notice. And that just, it makes it a much more positive experience at Texas State. The reason people go to UT games or A&M games is not to see their student body president. They do it because they love their university. They have so much pride for their university. And that's what we need at Texas State. It takes strong leadership to accomplish just that. And Holly and I will do that. Increase the pride and the accomplishment, the sense of pride and accomplishment here at Texas State.
All right. Thank you guys so much.